So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Szymon Janicki. I'm the icao for you CEO of the training, and I'm the author of all of examination content at our online test, as well as I'm the author of the education part content. Over the period of the last 5 years, I have tested more than, I have run the tests with more than 1,000 pilots. Student pilots, military pilots, aviation, well, commercial aviation, private aviation. During this presentation, I'd like to start with a short recapitulation of the most horrible catastrophes in the history of aviation, which partly happened due to the problems with communication misunderstanding, misinformation, attitudes to communication, and so on. Then we will briefly discuss the most commonly made mistakes by the airmen at the test. And finally, we will safely arrive at the icao for you mission statement when it comes to what we want to achieve in our education path and our mission statements until the year 2030. So, okay, let's let the language do the talking, and let's take a look at some of these disasters, which, as I said, partly happened due to miscommunication. On purpose, I decided to omit the Tenerife disaster, Pan Am and KLM, because to the best of my knowledge, all aviation personnel is perfectly aware of what happened there. I sometimes think that this horrible accident in the Tenerife is sometimes even treated as a kind of an excuse so that it will never happen again, because everybody is aware of what happened there. And we sometimes tend to omit the other catastrophes, which also happened, partly at least, as it usually happens in aviation, due to the miscommunication problems. Like in the year 1982 with Air Florida Flight 90, in horrible weather conditions, the first officer noticed that what he could see on the screens did not reflect the reality around. And he noticed that, he made a note of that to the captain, who actually brushed it off and decided the takeoff procedure to continue. In the year 2000, 83 fatalities, when the pilot failed to read the report, which said that the runway would be closed. With the icao assessment criteria, that would be quite difficult, probably, to put it into any of the six assessment criteria. But I would say that it also comes under the category of interactions, conduct, approach, you name it, preparation, right? Preparation to the flight. In 1990, 73 fatalities. The pilot failed to explicitly declare fuel emergency. Phraseology matters. So he actually referred to the ATCs with the fuel problems, but he failed to use the word emergency. With the icao assessment criteria, that would fall definitely under the category vocabulary phraseology. In the year 2001, 110 fatalities when the pilot of Cessna misinterpreted the message and turned into the wrong direction, crossing the active runway. Well, this active runway, traffic crossing from right to left to right, and so on, this is one of the most frequently made mistakes by the aviation personnel at the icao tests. Probably because of stress. You have to react at the icao tests very intuitively, on the spur of the moment. So all of these directions, active runway, crossing the active runway, taxiing to the holding point. We'll take a look at that in a moment, but that's something which, under the influence of stress, within the test which is 30 minutes long, probably makes somehow the airmen, also the very experienced ones, make common mistakes. The year 1980, with 146 fatalities, the pilot mistook the word inbound for outbound. There are several categories at icao tests under which we might interpret this. Grammar, prefixes, in, out. Vocabulary, phraseology, inbound, outbound. And probably also the common interactions or even listening comprehension because, of course, he heard it, or he actually misheard it. The year 1978, 144 fatalities. In the transmission between Flight 182, the word passed was misheard as passing. And that's the structure, grammar category at the icao assessment tests. Past as past participle, for passing, present participle in the structure. Totally different meanings, just because of the grammar suffix over here. 234 fatalities in 1997. The air traffic control ordered the pilot to turn right instead of left. Again, the interactions probably, the stress or the conduct approach. Now, if we take a look, if we recapitulate on that, we have the interactions category at the icao assessment. So attitude, conduct, approach. Vocabulary with phraseology. So that's what we said about some of those terrible errors which were made back then. Structure, grammar. Well, you know it much better than I do how important the rules in aviation are. You just all follow the rules. You just all follow the regulations. And please bear in mind that grammar is the regulation of the language. If we obey the rules of grammar, we've got something like, the spine of the language, which gives us a lot of comfort to communicate intuitively later on. I really believe that just like in the operation theaters and the hospitals, you in the cockpits, you have to be perfect with grammar. According to the simplicity rule, of course, no mixed conditionals in passive voice reported speech sentence at the same time. Like, how many times in your life would you use this type of sentence? That would be the violation of the obvious violation of the simplicity rule. But when it comes to, hey, come on, past, passing, I mean, no mistakes here, definitely. If we look at the most commonly made errors from the point of view of listening comprehension at the icao tests, we would actually need to recognize that sometimes the pilots have problems with properly recognizing the numbers. Airport infrastructure, taxiway, runway markings, ATIS indications, especially when these are those ones which the aviation personnel do not pay the first attention, let's say, the primary attention to. Because I have this kind of a feeling, it's like statistically I haven't counted it yet, that all the pilots would definitely take a look at dew point, right, as a digit, as a number, but not necessarily at the hour of the ATIS validity. So if we ask for that in the multiple choice section, sometimes that's misinterpreted. Well, because of stress, probably failure to understand directions, failure to understand resulting from the vocabulary incompetence. It does not only refer to phraseology proper. It may also refer to common language because we are obliged to test non-typical situations, reactions of the airmen. So if there is a statement, if there is a message, well, a passenger who is pregnant has gone into labor, and the pilot is not aware of what labor means in terms of pregnancy, well, he is going to lose the comfort of communication, or the ATC is going to lose this comfort of communication, because the pilot might start misinterpreting labor as the synonym of work, for instance, right? Not as the action of giving birth to a child. So that's why at icao for you we have also designed the list of vocabulary items. Well, in case of medicine, the most commonly displayed symptoms by the patients who are on board, by the sick passengers. Failure to understand instructions, yes, that happens as well. Failure to understand messages which are longer than one short sentence. I do cherish the simplicity rule in aviation, just like in medicine, as I said, in the operating theaters. But sometimes when there is a non-typical situation, you have to describe it. You have to make the other person on the other side. You have to make the other person visualize that. And this is why at icao tests we are all obliged to have the photograph description stage that the pilots hate. Like, because how many times actually do you describe the photograph in your adult life? The last time you probably did that was, I don't know, in your A-level test or at FCE or Cambridge Advanced English test. And then you have to describe the picture. But the primary reason why EASA and icao recommend this is, okay, make people visualize what you see when they by themselves can't see it. It is not the exercise which is difficult for very young pilots because they are just after school. They remember the photograph description stage. But when I ask Kai how many times he has described the pictures in the recent 5 years, not many, probably. Okay, so you don't have to describe the pictures. He's level 6. Wow. Then the last one, failure to understand longer messages pronounced with various accents. Yes, we are obliged to expose our candidates to the full range of accents. Hindi, French, German, Central East European, you name it, I agree. So this is difficult. So this is truly difficult when you have to listen to 6 messages in a row and each of them is pronounced with a different national background language. Now let's take a look at grammar mistakes, and well, of course, these are tenses mistakes causing discomfort or misunderstanding. Usually, in my opinion, these are not the type of mistakes which cause communication clash. But again, I would say that they cause discomfort, because if you say, "I am waiting for 10 minutes," then what does it actually mean to the person on the other side? Have you been waiting for 10 minutes? Are you determined to wait for 10 minutes? You never know. This is just unclear. So again, I will say that, like, if you take a look on the right, there is the irregular verbs mistakes which are made as well. And again, they don't cause communication gap, because if I tell you, I goed to Berlin yesterday, you understand it. Okay, I mean, that's just regularizing the irregular verb. And from the point of view of icao 4, you don't fail it. Because, yes, you understood that I went to Berlin. I flied somewhere instead I flew somewhere. You just understand it. But I really believe that aviation is art. I'm not an artist, you are artists. You're the pilots. I'm not. So come on, don't spoil this art with making such basic structural mistakes. Because, again, that's some kind of discomfort. But something more important, also for those ones who do not have in their mother tongues the wide array of aspects. Like in the English language, you have perfect aspects, simple and continuous, in the past, in the present, and in the future. In my language, in the Polish language, we don't have that. So naturally, those ones, because of this kind of differences between English and Polish, between English, Polish, and other languages which don't have such a variety of aspects, again, we tend to make those mistakes. Just like lack of correct action asking, correct questions asking competence, also resulting from the differences between the languages. From the communication anthropology point of view, all languages of the world have just 3 ways of asking questions. There is no 4th one. We ask questions by the question words, do, did, does. We ask questions by the inverted order of the sentence. Are you climbing instead of you are climbing? Or like in my language, we ask the questions by raising the intonation only. Because in the Polish language, we don't have the question words, so we don't have the inverted order of the sentence. We just ask the questions by intonation. But if you do it in the English language, the other person might not interpret that as the question, especially in case of this still, despite the technology advancement, imperfect communication, white noise, everything that you have in the cockpits. So, as an examiner, I don't accept this type of mistakes. I think that they can really bring grave results. If the question is not asked properly in English, this is not a question, it's a statement. So the other person might really misinterpret it as a statement. Failure to notice differences between conditional forms, yeah, just brushing that off a little bit. Negative sentences position of not, I landed not, I not landed, landed I not, or whatever else. I mean, that really happens, and it happens quite frequently. And, limited modal verbs competence. With this modal verb competence, I mean, I should go, I should going, I should be going, I should going yesterday, I should going tomorrow. That's how grammar mistakes are made over here. The other one, I'm really surprised with this one, passive voice competence, because I think that most aviation manuals I know are written with the passive voice, when the action or the result is more important than who performs the action. So the rules need to be obeyed and so on. But in case of the passive voice, please don't make mistakes like assistance needing or help is giving, etc. Very important mistake, pay attention to that. In case of countable and uncountable nouns, the difference between a little and little, few and a few, the real language communication difference. As well as the irregular nouns. There are some nouns in the English language which don't have the English or the Scandinavian or even the Latin background, but they come from Old Greek. And they form plurals differently than the regular nouns. Like, okay, the weather phenomenon. Then it's not what are the most dangerous weather phenomenons for private pilots, but what are the most dangerous weather phenomena for private pilots. Kai was speaking about recruitment. So what are the recruitment criteria, not what are the recruitment criterions. This type of mistakes happen as well. So with the additional observations that actually recapitulates what I've been talking about, simplicity rule, which of course needs to be obeyed, but flexibility is of utmost importance over here. So simplicity in case of the typical situations, routine situations, but flexibility should facilitate the creative, open, visualization facilitating communication. When Kai started speaking about recruitment, and when I saw him in his organization actually welcoming the students, I thought it's a nice link to the very modern theory of linguistics, which deals with the full communication. And there are 5 photographs here because it's about aviation, but there are 6 rules of full communication. One is missing in aviation, and that's why we have to make up for this gap by being perfect, being fluent in all other communication rules. So the first rule is that we have to speak well. Obviously, the pilots do try to speak well, no mistakes and so on. The second rule is we need to be active listeners, and that's what you are masters at. You really listen attentively, you listen well. And out of the 6 rules of full communication, these are the only ones which are purely linguistic. The other 4 are psychological linguistics. So we need to be open for the needs, and yes, you are. I mean, that's your culture, being open for the needs of the others. The 4th one is giving assistance after being open to the needs, right? And again, yeah, that's who you are. The 5th one is analysis, post-communication analysis, drawing conclusions. Well, FA reports that you like studying from, because it's an excellent resource for studying. So the analysis of the communication failures, successes, and so on. So these are the 5 that exist in your world. But there is also one more which is inexistent. And Kai mentioned that, body language. Okay? Body language, which depends on who you talk to, is behind from 50 to sometimes 70% of human communication. It's inexistent here. So we need to make up for this deficiency by means of perfecting all other categories. So we have that dream at icao for you, this kind of mission statement, that by the year 2030, by means of our education path, by means of the events which we organize, We want to make sure that all aviation personnel in Europe communicates fluently, with confidence, and properly in the English language. We have designed the online learning and testing system, which is recognized across all EASA countries since the year, or has been recognized in all EASA countries since the beginning of the year 2022. We work online. We do believe that online education and testing provides candidates and the examiners with comfort, with convenience, availability and accessibility, and a very important thing for all of you, it saves time. Time is the most precious resource these days, and this type of testing actually releases you from the time pressure. You don't have to travel to the tests. You don't have to travel for the education. You can do it from wherever you want and whenever you want. We do our best to make sure that all our content in education and in testing reflects the real situations. We have this team of aviation professionals, ATCOs, military pilots, commercial pilots, my friends, private pilots, and also the linguists who draw conclusions from what is happening in aviation in the real time. One more advantage, which is worth mentioning here as well, with no prolonged publishing process, we are able to publish to include in our education path content, as well as the examination path content, everything in real time. If there is an FAA report which deals with the accident that happened some time ago, published on Monday, and maybe not on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, we will have that in our system to make sure that everything is up to date, that it's valid, approachable, and accessible with comfort. From the point of view of an educator, I really believe that we live in such stressful times on numerous levels that the comfort and the convenience of education is of primary importance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Szymon.